so hypnotized by their environment through the media, through television, through people living and creating ideals that everybody struggles to become, that no one can actually become in terms of physical appearance and definitions of beauty and valor that are all illusions, that most people surrender and live their life in mediocrity. And they may live that life, and the soul may never really, their desire may never really rise to the surface, so they may want to be something else. But if it does rise to the surface, and they ask themselves if there is something more, or why am I here? What is the purpose of life? Where am I going? What happens when I die? They start to ask those questions. They start to flirt and interact with the perception that they may be having a nervous breakdown. And in reality, what they're doing is that their old concepts of how they viewed their life in the world start to fall apart.
That's why very few people make this journey, because it's deeply unsettling. All of the molds that we have lived by have to be broken, and we have to liberate ourselves in this way. And sometimes there's an awkward period between the comfort that we knew before and the real state of comfort when we are the Lord of our being, which follows that interval of chaos. Most people, when they get into the chaos, give up hope and go back to the old false securities. They get to live a reasonable life, and they get to die in some sort of peace, but they haven't advanced spiritually at all in that experiment that we call the life.
Someone hit the joint before we could.
We're in completely new territory in our brain. And because we're in completely new territory, we're rewiring the brain, literally reconnecting to a new concept. Then ultimately, it changes us from the inside out. If I change my mind, will I change my choices? If I change my choices, will my life change? Why can't I change? What am I addicted to? What will I lose that I'm chemically attached to? And what person, place, thing, time, or event that I'm chemically attached to that I don't want to lose because I may have to experience the chemical withdrawal from that? Hence the human drama.
This life is but a page in an enormous book in which we will always be who we are, but always with the inherent needling of ambitious pursuit, a pursuit that takes us from the boring tedium of self-reflection, of self-hate, and to self-creation of new dreams. And we are ambitious gods.
It's the only planet in the Milky Way that has habitation that is steeped in enormous subjugation of religion. You know why that is? Is because people have set up right and wrong.
I did say there is no right and wrong. Does that mean that it's a free-for-all? Absolutely not. I mean, the problem that I have with right and wrong in those categories is not that I want a free-for-all, but that right and wrong doesn't go nearly far enough.
They have never sinned. They have never wronged. Wrong, yes, in moral confrontations with society, but that's their adversity. That's why they're here. to wrong, to learn, search, and use the wisdom of that to create yet greater dreams.
There's nobody keeping records up there. The records are here, and I'm going to have to deal with them. That's far more painful than a record-keeping God up in the skies. So anyone who's setting out on the path of enlightenment will be absolutely impeccable in everything that they do. Is it because of fear of damnation? No. Or of the punishment of God, or because I have sinned and haven't got forgiveness? No, no, no. I mean, these are all excuses that keep us away from the real problem. The really enlightened person is seeing every action has a reaction with which I must deal. And if I'm wise, I'm not going to do stuff that will cause me to have to face it and resolve it and balance it in my soul later. That's the real criterion.
That God, or the fundamental level of reality, depending on what people describe, it really, I mean, theoretically, it should be everywhere. It's something, you know, exactly how it would manifest or how God would manifest in the world is a more complicated issue. But I think that certainly from a more traditional religious perspective, people have kind of gotten away from God, the person.
There's been a great shift from God up there or out there or in there, wherever, to the God within. And that's an improvement, but we don't want to get some idea that God can be within and still be separate, which is what most people think. They think the God within is like some of those alien movies, you know, where some being breaks out from my chest. God is not within in that stupid sense. What it means is that in God we live, move, and have our being, that we ourselves, in fact, are divine.
What's the relation between my God self and your God self? There is no relationship because it's only one God self. It's in both of us.
Then you'll see
All
that
people
it
are
is
divine
not the
people.
spoon that bends, it is only yourself.
Is it not ironic that all would say that this is the voice of the devil, or that this is heresy? If this is heresy, then what is promised to everyone is an imbuement with God that is inseparable.
Knowledge allows the brain to begin to become wired, and we will begin to see what has always existed, but because we live in those routine automatic programs, we're unable to see because we're processing mind from the familiar. To learn knowledge means we're learning new things, and to learn new things means we're gathering information and creating the circuitry now to begin to develop the sensitivity, to begin to see things for the first time.
There is enormous potential to change the kind of behaviors and characteristic patterns that we've fallen into. In fact, if you've listened and have remembered anything that I've said, your physiology is different than it was before that. That is something that Eric Kandel, the recent winner of the Nobel Prize in Medicine and Science, said very eloquently at a talk, that basically memory has been encoded, your genetic structure has changed, and while we previously would talk about the nervous system as this very rigid thing that didn't have much capacity for change, we now know that on many levels that isn't true. And actually there's a tremendous amount of plasticity, which basically means ability to change within the nervous system.
And if you look at the structure of the human brain in detail, you see that it's specifically designed, it's carefully engineered to experience the unified field, to experience the unity of life.
We're all connected. I mean, I think the most fundamental thing is we're all connected by an energy field. We swim in a sea of light, basically, which is the zero-point field. And I say, first of all, you have to get away from the whole idea of separateness, because separateness is the biggest problem of the world now.
You take this notion of an entangled universe and you apply it to human experience, because human experience is part of the universe as well. And then you say, well, let's assume that experience is entangled, then how would it manifest? And we can start going through ways in which it could manifest. If there's a connection with another mind, we call it telepathy. If there's a connection to some other object somewhere else, we'd call it clairvoyance. If there's a connection that happens to transcend time, We call it precognition. If there's a connection in which my intention is expressed out in the world some way, we might call it psychokinesis or distant healing or something of that sort. So you can go through a list of perhaps 12 kinds of psychic experience that have gotten labels over the years, like telepathy, but this is really just the tip of the iceberg.
People ask, why are you so interested in the Planck scale, but very ultimately tiny in terms of spirituality? Because obviously spirituality is out there, it's everywhere. And the answer is that yes, the Planck scale is the ultimately small, but it's also everywhere. Wherever you go, there it is. And because it's holographic, it repeats at different scales, like fractals, throughout the universe.
I would say that what quantum physics is to the 20th century, whatever is going to be the new bridging of science and spirituality, that will be to the 21st century.
We are all creating the future. We are all creating what is outside of us. None of us are innocent in that regard. If there's something out there we don't like, we can't really turn our backs on it because we're co-creators somehow or other. And we have to do the right things to try to get the future that is best for all of us.
We have talked so far about the freedom of our own personal life and quantum physics, that we are freeing and freeing and freeing our reality to ultimate realities. Yes, of course they exist. But after we have accomplished them, what then? What next? When do we make the shift from me to one? When are we the subconscious mind? When are we the knowledge of the one, transpersonal self?
When you start to realize what your true nature is, there is no question, there is no answer anymore. And there's just sudden realization. Now you come back from the rabbit hole and you start to perform in this world of illusion and wonder and magic with that understanding that you're never going to die and you were never born.
Choice by consciousness out of these possible events, the actual event of experience comes in. And so, for the first time, science encounters free will.
I've just come from touring Welfare Square with Senator Hatch and some amazing people from the leadership of the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints. Special. I spent a lot of time with them. In fact, I went around the store. I wanted a nice can of tuna fish. And they had plenty. They really help people. Incredible. After our visit, I can truly say firsthand that Utah's awesome natural beauty is exceeded only by the warmth and grace and hospitality of its citizens. This state has many natural treasures, but its greatest treasure by far is its people. And we will ensure the right of the people to live according to the faith in their hearts, which is why we will always protect your religious liberty. And we've been doing that. I know all of you feel blessed to be living among some of the most glorious natural wonders anywhere in the world. You cherish Utah's gleaming rivers and sweeping valleys. You take inspiration from its majestic peaks. And when you look upon its many winding canyons and glowing vistas, you marvel at the beauty of God's great creation. And that is why I'm here today. Because some people think that the natural resources of Utah should be controlled by a small handful of very distant bureaucrats located in Washington. And guess what? They're wrong. The families and communities of Utah know and love this land the best, and you know the best how to take care of your land. You know how to protect it. And you know best how to conserve this land for many, many generations to come. Your timeless bond with the outdoors should not be replaced with the whims of regulators thousands and thousands of miles away. They don't know your land, and truly, they don't care for your land like you do. But from now on, that won't matter. I've come to Utah to take a very historic action, to reverse federal overreach and restore the rights of this land to your citizens. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. But before I began, because I understood how big it is, I'm a real estate developer. When they start talking about millions of acres, I say it again. That's a lot. So before I began, I met with Senator Orrin Hatch, who loves Utah and loves the people of Utah. I called Senator Mike Lee, who loves Utah and loves the people of Utah. I called your governor. I called my original, where is he? There he is. I called all of the friends that I have in Utah. I said, what do you think? I said, will this be good for our country, and will it be good for your state? They said this would be incredible for our country, will be incredible for Utah. Finally, you'd be giving people back their access to the land they know, to the land they understand, and most importantly, to the land that they love. I also said, will it be at all controversial? They all told me no. How did that happen? I don't think it is controversial, actually. I think it's so sensible. Therefore, today, on the recommendation of Secretary Zicke, and with the wise counsel of Senator Hatch, Senator Lee, and the many others, I will sign 2 presidential proclamations. These actions will modify the national monuments designations of both Bears Ears and Grand Staircase Escalante. As many of you know, past administrations have severely abused the purpose, spirit, and intent of a century-old law known as the Antiquities Act. This law requires that only the smallest necessary area be set aside for special protection as national monuments. Unfortunately, previous administrations have ignored the standard and used the law to lock up hundreds of millions of acres of land and water under strict government control. These abuses of the Antiquities Act give enormous power to faraway bureaucrats at the expense of the people who actually live here, work here, and make this place their home. This is where they raise their children. This is the place they love. For example, the previous administration designated more than 500 million acres of land and water, including Bears Ears. It did so over the loud objections of the people of this state and their elected representatives. Governor, right? The results have been very sad and very predictable. Here and in other affected states, we have seen harmful and unnecessary restrictions on hunting, ranching, and responsible economic development. We have seen grazing restrictions prevent ranching families from passing their businesses and beloved heritage on to the children that they love. We've seen many rural families stopped from enjoying their outdoor activities, and the fact that they've done it all their lives made no difference to the bureaucrats in Washington. We have seen needed improvements like infrastructure upgrades and road maintenance impeded and foreclosed. We have seen how this tragic federal overreach prevents many Native Americans from having their rightful voice over the sacred land where they practice their most important ancestral and religious traditions. These abuses of the Antiquities Act have not just threatened your local economies, they've threatened your very way of life. They've threatened your hearts. Our precious national treasures must be protected, and they, from now on, will be protected. Under my administration, we will advance that protection through a truly representative process, one that listens to the local communities, that knows the land the best, and that cherishes the land the most. With the action I'm taking today, we will not only give back your voice over the use of this land, we will also restore your access and your enjoyment. Public lands will once again be for public use. Because we know that people who are free to use their land and enjoy their land are the people most determined to conserve their land. One values the splendor of Utah more than, I'll tell you what, there's nobody out there. I just came in and I'm looking around with Orrin and with Mike and with the governor and with everybody, and I'm just saying, what a beautiful picture it is. But no one values the splendor of Utah more than you do, and no one knows better how to use it. With your help in treating our natural bounty with respect, gratitude, and love, we will put our nation's treasures to great and wonderful use. Families will hike and hunt on land they have known for generations, and they will preserve it for generations to come. Cattle will graze along the open range. Sweeping landscapes will inspire young Americans to dream beyond the horizon. And the world will stand in awe of the artistry God has worked right here in your great state. Together, we will usher in a bright new future of wonder and wealth, liberty and law, and patriotism and pride all across this great land. Thank you to the wonderful people of Utah. May God bless you, and may God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. And in your honor, I will now, with your representatives, sign this very, very important proclamation. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. modifying the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument by the President of the United States and representatives. Thank you very much. I think we'll give this one. Thank you. Modifying the Bears Ears National Monument. And we're going to do the following. We have some great people, Governor. Who do I give these Mr. Cook, will you sign my hat? I'll sign. He wants me to sign his hat. Somehow less important. I will do it.
And a firm handshake there from the President of the United States to some lawmakers there in Utah. He put his signature on his hat. He also put his signature on two very important documents. Those are presidential proclamations modifying the national monument status of two national monuments there in the state of Utah at the state capitol. Hey everyone, I'm Amna Nawaz. We're going to walk you through what happened there and why it matters. Also some of the other big headlines we're following around President Trump and what's coming out of Washington, D.C. today. You saw there the result of a long review President Trump had asked his Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke to carry out, looking out at 27 different national monuments. This is the first modification to come as a result of that review. I want to go to the room now. My colleague Gloria Rivera is there at the Utah State Capitol. She's traveling with the president. And Gloria, for anyone catching up on the headlines today, this is not one of the president's stated agenda priorities. So why is this coming now? What's the significance of this decision today?
Well, it is very significant. In fact, it is the first time in more than half a century that a president has attempted and now today succeeded in reversing those proclamations on some national monuments here. You saw him sign that presidential proclamation on Bears Ear National Monument. Now, we have been told prior to this speech, which we can now share with you, the Bears Ear acreage was at 1.35 million acres. That's now going to go down to 230,000 acres. What you saw immediately after he signed that proclamation were cheers and then chants of 4 more years. This hall is filled with several Republican state, local lawmakers, and they have been pushing their Senator Orrin Hatch, to do something about this. And before the president took the stage, Senator Hatch introduced him by saying it was at the end of the Obama administration that he says he was blindsided when President Obama established those 1.35 million acres for Bears Ears. Hatch said he immediately went to President Trump to try to do something about this. And what we saw today is indeed he has radically changed the size of both Bears Ears, and the other one is the Grand Staircase Escalante site. Both of those now severely reduced.
So Gloria, help us understand a little bit what the practical impact of these designations or the change in the designations will be. Who benefits from this and who loses?
Well, immediately when the president came here today, what he said was this. He said, you here in Utah know how best to use this land, how best to love this land, and it should not be controlled, his argument is, by bureaucrats who are so far away in Washington, D.C. So immediately you're going to see a few things happen. You're going to see this land reopened to grazing, and we saw a lot of cowboy hats here. We were told there were several ranchers in the audience here today. They will now be able to open up this land to grazing for cattle. Now, environmentalists have a problem with that. They say that overgrazing causes severe environmental negative impacts. You're also going to see this land opened up for recreational use. Today, if you were to walk out, and I was just out on these lands recently last week, it is quiet. You're going to see now families be able to use their ATV vehicles to go out to hunt and fish again on this land. So it will be a very big difference from what you see now to what you'll see in a very short time. The president also arguing that federal management restricted the upkeep and maintenance of these areas. So you will see some infrastructure projects likely get started. Improvements to roads, improvements to areas around it. But essentially what it does, the president argues, is it gives back control to the state level. You're going to see these areas managed now by the Bureau of Land Management and the National Forestry Service. Those organizations have people on the ground here in Utah who they say can better listen to the locals for how this land can be used.
Consciousness is free because there is no mathematical description of the subject. Only objects can be described mathematically, and only to the extent that there are possibilities. The question still remains paramount: who is the chooser?
Are all realities existing simultaneously? Is there a possibility that all potentials exist side by side?
Welcome to Flatland, a world of only 2 dimensions. Only forwards and backwards, left and right. In this world, there is no up and no down.
I said to Ray, where's Dottie? He said, well, she's out in line.
What the bleep is that thing? Huh?
In this world, the 2-dimensional beings that live here have no concept of 3-dimensional objects. These 2-dimensional flatlanders have no understanding of cubes, spheres, tetrahedrons, or yours truly. From their 2D perspective, my 3D finger looks something like this.
What the planet is that?
Hello, little circle. Fear of the unknown. Or should I say, not yet known. It's a puzzle. If we see only what we know, how does anyone ever see anything new? The unknown. How do we ever get out of our box? Hello, little circle. Don't be afraid.
Who said that? Where are you?
This is always the tricky part to explain. I'm in another dimension, another space. I am above you. What word?
The A word.
Above?
It's forbidden.
Well, what do you think it means?
I don't know. And I don't want to know. You can be severely punished if you use that word. Are you a ghost?
I hope not. I just have a different perspective than you do. I can see things in a way you can't yet.
Oh, yeah? Like what?
Well, okay, you have a safe hidden in your pantry. And inside it, you have 12 coins, a will, and a passport.
How did you know that? What are you? Are you a god?
Well, no more than you. You see, since I am above you, in the third dimension, I can see inside things in your world.
Third dimension? You are a crazy ghost. There's only two. Look.
So, if I were to touch the inside of your stomach, how would I do that?
Well, you'd have to cut through my skin. Otherwise, it's impossible. Stop!
Ready for more?
More what?
Dimensions.
Oh.
Directions.
No. Yes, but there aren't any. More? What will happen to me? What will I become?
You'd have to become it to know.
Okay.